The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. The following video is presented by the Center for Educational Media in partnership with Professional Educators of Tennessee's LeaderU Conference. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
I am Dr. Ryan Jackson, and you know, somebody either once told me this or I once read this, that you can't motivate anyone. Motivation comes from within. What we can, however, do is inspire. So my sole goal today is to inspire you. You know, I've been thinking about this long and hard, and although I've done some smaller keynotes, I've never done one that felt quite like this, Mr. Bowman. I want you to know that. So this is new for me, so embrace it and be kind. But I'm here to inspire you today. And with that inspiration is going to come really a story that I'm going to tell. And I want you to know that I'm starting with this image here because this story does have a happy ending. We are going to go to some dark places. We're going to go to some recesses. And I want you guys to think about that because I've thought long and hard and reflected on A, why I'm doing this keynote, and B, what is the purpose of a keynote. So if I'm here to set the tone, if I'm here to set the stage for equity and excellence in education, then that's my plan today. My plan is to inspire you as we go forward to change lives and continue to add equity and excellence in education. That's how I live my life. One thing that I think you'll appreciate about this particular keynote is, you know, I am an active practitioner. And I got to give a big shout out to my friend who's also presenting today, my friend, my brother, Dr. Tim Drinkwine. He's in the audience. And he told me not too long ago when I asked him in kind of a vulnerable moment, you know, I said, Tim, I need you to tell me the truth, man. Because I'm pretty wild out here, buddy. I bang my chest pretty loudly for kids. No fear of doing that. And he told me, man, and it really put me in my place. And he said, you are an active practitioner. You do the work. You're in the work. So I think what you'll get out of this today is this is a person that stands in front of you that is literally 10 toes down. He's on the front line of education every day, impacting lives. And that's a story that we're going to tell today. So this is an image here. And what's cool about this keynote, and Mr. Bowman, where I was going with this is almost real time. This just happened last week where we received a $500,000, a $500,000 grant from Parker Hannifin, which is a global filtration company, to build an innovation lab inside Mount Pleasant High School. And if you haven't heard of Mount Pleasant High School, I'm going to get to that. That's a good thing. But first, we're going to go to some dark places. This keynote is titled Education in the Age of the Underdog. And I specifically called it that because I believe right now we're on this precipice of danger. They're calling it a crisis in education. And I've really tried to get my head around that. If we're really in this crisis, then I'm going to embrace this model that I learned when I went to China. I went to China as part of this Vanderbilt group, Principles of Learning Academy in Nashville while I was in Metro Nashville Public Schools. Spent 2 weeks in China. And my biggest takeaway from the Chinese was this. When it comes to crisis, the Chinese look for opportunities in the midst of danger. That's their whole view on it. If there's crisis, we've got a growth mindset. We don't run from it. We sift through the sand to find the opportunity. So if we're really in this crisis in education, then I'm charging all of you to find the opportunities because that's what I've done. So back to that first picture. If we know that budgets are being cut, if everything is centering around funding, financing, then how did one school in remote rural Tennessee just land $500,000 for an innovation lab to be built in one of the smallest high schools in Murray County? How we do that? Because I look for the opportunities in the midst of danger, and we're going to get to that. But that's what it is about education in the age of the underdog. And we can't get there without explaining why I'm the guy who wears the fancy suits, the Jordans, the sunglasses, speaks directly into the camera on Twitter. We can't get to that without explaining this part of the story, because I am an underdog. That's why I fight for him so heavily. You can probably imagine which one of these is me. So I grew up a redheaded stepchild, literally, right? And I was thinking about this in the car ride over this morning, and my wife was trying to be really sweet. She was talking about other things to get my mind on something else, but I could not stop thinking about what you and I are getting ready to engage in. And I was thinking, like, I was going to ask you this question. You know, name five successful redheaded people. This is where my brain was going this morning. I'm like, name 5 successful redheaded people. It's really tough to do. You've got to like really rack your brain and think, okay, Carrot Top, he's that comedian. Like you're really trying to think. Man, I grew up a redheaded stepchild. This is my father on the right. His name is Stephen Jackson, rest in peace. He's deceased. He died not too long ago. And truth be told, man, it was a culmination of things. Ultimately, it was a result of hard living. He was dang near a destitute alcoholic. He never held a job, right? He drank himself ultimately to death, got hooked on pain pills later in life. But we had a very estranged relationship. Now, not coincidentally, that's me on the beach when we lived in Homestead, Florida. He had a dishonorable discharge from the Air Force. It was like that. But this is when we were down in Homestead before the hurricane hit. This is like maybe 80, 81, something like that. And that's me holding a beer can. Ironic, but we're going to get to that in a minute too. Now, on top of that, I'm redheaded. My dad's an alcoholic. He's in and out of my life. He's not setting a very good example. I was born in Evansville, Indiana. And the red doesn't translate real well. I was going for this ominous thing, so just go with me. I was born in Evansville, Indiana, which at face value is kind of like, so what? Until you start digging a little bit deeper. So Evansville was consistently ranked in the top 10 of most miserable cities in the United States. That's a fact. Beyond that, I'm from South Evansville, the south side of Evansville. My parents still live there in the home that I was raised in. I started living there when I was about 3 years old. So I'm from South Evansville, about 2 blocks from the levee, okay? And I tell people, because in terms of proximity, it's true. I grew up in between a thoroughbred racing track. This is Ellis Park, which is in Henderson, Kentucky, just on the other side of the Ohio River from Evansville, right? But it was probably 10 minutes from where I lived. So I grew up in between Ellis Park Racing Track and Casino Astar, riverboat gambling. And I saw any and every vice in between there, just where I grew up. I spent almost 5 days a week at Ellis Park in my childhood. It's where I had my first taste of whiskey, right, as a kid at a thoroughbred racing track, because it was everywhere, right? And I grew up in that kind of environment. Taught me a lot of things, certainly taught me how to survive. Also proved to me, this isn't where I want to spend my life. I've got to do something else. I've got to strive for something bigger. Now, I grew up in the VHS era. Well, actually, I'm going to get to that in here in a second. More significantly about Evansville, I did some research here recently. My primary schooling was not a positive experience. I call myself the underdog's advocate for a reason. I get very awkward and nervous when we get into those PD sessions or those roundtable sessions where they ask you to think back and name that educator that changed your life. And people are like, man, my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Rupel. Man, my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Stevens. Man, I had nobody. I can't name anyone that changed my life in school. And this is real talk. I can't name one educator that looked me in the face, though, that curly red hair, and said, Ryan, man, you're a heck of a writer, man. I see talent in you. Now, truth be told, when I got to undergrad at the University of Southern Indiana, I did meet a guy named Forrest Poston who took me under his wing a little bit, helped me sharpen my writing saw. And it was not until I was probably 21, 22 years old that an educator actually told me I could be successful at something. This is a fact. So then I said, you know what? Let me see where my schools are now. So I'm from Evansville, Indiana. I got this from the tristatehomepage.com. There's my elementary school. There's my middle school. And as I reflect back, and I can't give you the grade of what they were in 90 and 92, but I'd be willing to bet not much has changed. And it saddens me to this day. I don't live in Evansville anymore. I now live in Murray County. I just spent 14 years in Metro Nashville. But this is where I've come from. So an alcoholic father who wasn't there. I lived in between a thoroughbred racing track and Casino Astar. And I went to an elementary school that currently has an F in a middle school that currently has a D. Now, my high school, I did that research too. They had a C. They're average. I'm going to show them some love. Harrison High School, they got a C. They're hanging in there. But where my foundation was currently sits at an F. So I knew I had to do something different. And I grew up in the VHS era, right? Which meant this. I had a video store, and I now have a 3-year-old son. And I look at him and I think, you know what? There's so much awesomeness that I can share with you, show you, we can celebrate together. One thing we'll never experience together was that trip to the video store. That living, breathing, brick and mortar building where you went and looked at the video boxes and turned them on the back, and you know what I mean. I mean, if you grew up in that area, you understand. So I had one, it was called Green's Video, that was about 2 blocks from my house. And that's what I did. So my mother would give me $1.50, and I would walk to the video store every Friday and rent a movie. And it was out of that I just cultivated this love for filmmaking. And as I've reflected as an adult, it was way less about filmmaking and more about storytelling. I wanted to be transported. I wanted to see something different. This was my global introduction to things. And the reason I put this up here on here is this is Baba King. This is a short film that I did. So I first fully funded, $45,000, a feature film, which is what brought me to Nashville. So we make this feature film. I produced it. I raised money for it while I was in undergrad. We shot the film in Nashville. I moved to Nashville once I graduate, raised the finishing funds. I sell that film in 2004 to Artistry Home Entertainment. I moved to Los Angeles briefly, and the guy that I'm living with, who was about 35 at the time, was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood at 35, and he was working at a bookstore. And I made a decision that that wasn't going to be me. So I moved back to Nashville. Fall in love, try to keep my film career going, because Nashville was still buzzing. There's production houses and things like that. So I produced this film, Baba King. And ultimately, Baba King tells the story of kids raising kids. That's ultimately what it's about. And I've seen so much of that in my education experience, but this was before I even got into education. So I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to tell stories. And the irony about my journey as a filmmaker is, A, it didn't last very long, but B, it gave me this platform to connect with in terms of kids. And I didn't even reflect on that until recently when I first started to think, man, why was I accepted at Maplewood so quickly? Because I worked there for 10 years. It's one of the hardest schools on the planet, certainly one of the hardest in Tennessee. Why was I accepted so quickly there? Well, my willingness to take risks as a filmmaker, my willingness to look at things through an empathetic lens as a filmmaker transferred to my willingness to help the underdogs at Maplewood. And that's why I think my filmmaking experience is valuable, especially in our conversation today. And finally, the next thing about me, somebody was telling me yesterday, they said, that principal you got over there, they were telling somebody that works with me, they said, that principal you got over there at Mount Pleasant, you guys are doing some big things, but why does he take all those selfies of himself in the gym? I said, that's good, that's humbling. Okay, I'll accept that. And I said, well, let me tell you why I do that. You know, I told you about my father a little bit, and here's the reality. I'm gonna shoot you straight this morning. Everything you'll see from me will be 100% authentic. Man, I'm an alcoholic. And I'm standing up here really for the first time publicly and saying that out loud, hearing myself out loud. I avoided using the term for a long time, but here's the kind of the realization that I've come to. My father was an alcoholic. It's genetics. I got into a situation when filmmaking wasn't going well, and I was in a very tough relationship, and I too started to use alcohol as a crutch to the point that it grabbed me. It had me. You can ask my wife, Leticia. I mean, there was a point in my life where it had me. Now, if I wasn't going to talk to you about how working out and weightlifting has changed my life, I would show you another shot, one that I don't have because selfies weren't cool at this time, but it's me sleeping on the floor with no furniture and an Old Navy pea coat as a blanket. That's where I was. I met my wife at this time. She knows this story. I had nothing. We were still drinking at this time. But my wife and I had a 12-pack of beer, and we were sitting on my floor, and there's absolutely nothing in it. True story. So 4 years ago, I made a decision. Stop drinking altogether, cold turkey, just cut it out, right? Convince my brain that it's literally like drinking poison. And I've used working out, exercise, to combat that, to trick that part of the brain that these endorphins are worth much more than the destruction you're putting into yourself. So there's times, full transparency, when I'm taking those selfies and I'm looking at that other person and I'm asking him, I'm judging him, I'm talking to his progress. That's what I'm doing. That's why I post those. I didn't put it that fiery to that person, but that's where I'm coming from when I do that. So my wife took this shot of me, and it means a lot to me because I get in there, I'm in my zone, and to a degree, this is my sanctuary. This is what I do. This is how I heal myself, and it works for me. So much so I've connected with other educators throughout the United States with this movement we have called Fit Leaders. And I've connected with so many principals and so many educators, and here's why. Man, $163 million annually is lost in leadership turnover. 50% of principals don't make it past 3 years. Man, it is emotionally, physically taxing. Speak to some of these superintendents, man. Speak to my man, Tim Drinkwine. It will crush you if you let it. I refuse to let it. I refuse to let it. So I'm in there sharpening my saw, getting myself better every day. That's why you're going to continue to see those selfies. Now, we are the underdogs. And this is a very controversial picture that I'm putting up here, but I chose to include it anyway. I did 10 plus years at Maplewood High School. This is one of my favorite pictures that I own, that I have. This was a candid shot that somebody took of me with a student that is still alive, that I still think of a lot. And the other picture on the right is one that somebody sent me recently. He's now an adult, didn't graduate, been out of school. And I asked myself a lot, did I do enough? Was I bold enough? Wrote a blog recently, and I was putting in there like, are you bold enough? Is your leadership bold enough? Man, I ask myself that all the time. Were you bold enough? If you were bold enough, he's not in this picture doing this. And this is the new fancy thing, man. You're going to see it. That's where they hold the extended clip. You'll see it. This is him when I had an opportunity to keep him from this, and I didn't. I failed that mission. And I think about that a lot. To the extent I can get emotional about it. But we are all underdogs. And I don't just mean him, and I certainly just don't mean me. I mean everybody in this room right now, everybody that has made a commitment to change the lives of young people. And I don't care whether you're affluent, I don't care whether you're destitute, poverty. Today's students in this age of the underdog, everybody needs an advocate. And if you've made that commitment to change someone's life and you're in education, guess what, folks? You're an underdog. Here's some specifics. 35%. It's a staggering figure. More staggering when you consider 35% is the decrease in teacher enrollment for new programs, for post-secondary education. The number is down 35%. What does that mean? Teachers, millennials especially right now, they're like, wait a second, man, I don't want a piece of that fight. Come on, man. Some of us older folks, we like to judge these millennials. Nah, man, I work like a baby boomer and think like a millennial. I don't judge them. I like to think. I like to get inside their head. Why are they not coming? Why is it down 35%? Because they're not stupid. They look at the paradigm that currently exists, the paradigm that they grew up in, and they said, I don't want no piece of that. Not the way it is currently. So that number is down 35%. That's just a fact. That's coming from Learning Policy Institute. So what does that mean? It means we're asking teachers, the ones that are with us, the ones that have committed to join this underdog fight, we're asking teachers to do more. We're asking them to be social workers. We're asking them to be tutors, to be mentors. We're asking them to simply do their job, show up on time. Had a great conversation with somebody yesterday, another principal that said, man, if I could just get mine to do their job. Not even stay till 4, not even come in at 6:30 and tutor. Man, just do your job. It's so hard, and we're asking them to do so much. Now, all these pictures that you'll see here today are from me and mine. I took these photos. I've got access to all these permission slips. Ease your mind a little bit. At the same time, we're asking teachers and students to think outside the box in this paradigm that they've been conditioned to live, think, do in. And we're asking them, hey, you know what? We've got some research that's coming here, and not everybody's fit for post-secondary education. We're going to want you to do some vocational stuff too. But wait a second, you told us like 10 years ago vocational wasn't where it's at. Everybody needed to go to college. Now everybody's got to be a computer programmer. But now you also want us to do what now? So I'm asking guys to step outside of their comfort zone, or I'm going out now and I'm recruiting even more non-traditional educators because I'm seeing the game in terms of vision where it's going. And here's where I'm going with that. So this is a guy, Luke Massey. He's in here training kids in our Project Leadway program, simply how to hammer a nail. I'm not going to sensationalize it. He's teaching these kids how to hammer a nail, period, point blank. And I was proud of him that day that he was doing it. And these kids did tell me they liked that shot too. They thought it was pretty cool. But here's the reality. This is from Angie's List. Baby boomers, I love you. My mother, she's worked 30 years at the University of Southern Indiana in a physical plant. She's one of the most smartest women I know. She's surrounded by nothing but men. She's worked in the same job, maybe one promotion, but it was all in the physical plant. I think she went from like being the clerk, checking out the pieces, to now she's the supervisor in the physical plant. She stayed there so long, A, she put me through college doing that. B, she put herself through college doing that, earning her master's degree at 59 years old, okay? But as a baby boomer, I think of her, and you guys are retiring in mass droves. So much so that by 2024, these are the job shortages that you're looking for these very unattractive, non-sexy jobs, careers, right? Come on, man. We don't put sexiness in the same conversation as plumbing. No one ever has, right? But I'm going to tell you what, and you can ask my wife, when you tell a new teacher, hey, I can start you out at 40, but you tell a new plumber, I can start you out at 53, man, the game has changed, folks. But yet we're not selling those programs. I'm going to start selling them. And here's why. Because 181,000 electrician positions are going to be available. And Angie's List is so concerned. They're so spooked. They're saying, we can't fill these jobs, guys. Help us. They're reaching out to us all the time. HVAC techs, 84,000. Plumbers, 105. Carpenters, 169,000. That's why I'm proud that at Mount Pleasant High School, we just built a 1,200 square foot home, sold it at auction for $58,000, and it was completely built by children. Because I'm preparing carpenters for these 169,000 positions that will be available by 2024. Yet you want to tell me about standardized testing? Let's have a real conversation today. Now, students are the ultimate underdogs. Here's a guy that some of you guys will get to see later. This is Dr. Ron Woodard. He's the director of pupil services in Murray County. He also happens to be my mentor. Also happens to be one of the most hardworking, toughest individuals I've ever met. Forged me by fire in terms of my leadership training. He's in this picture with me. And these two guys are seniors, just graduated from Mount Pleasant High School. Now, I think about them a lot because I only had 9 months with them. I only had 1 year with them. And I got to throw them head first out into the real world. So I think about them a lot. Man, students are the ultimate underdogs. Everything is uncertain. There's all these jobs waiting for them that they don't know how to do, that they don't have any skills for, right? They don't believe in the current education paradigm. Believe that. You know how I believe that? Because I'm in schools every day, 10 toes down, talking to students. And here's what they'll say to me, a lot. Man, I learn more at home on the computer than I do at school. What do you mean? Man, if I want to learn about the Pythagorean theorem, I'm going to go to Khan Academy or I'm going to go to YouTube. And I'm going to learn it by myself on my own time. If I want to learn how to tie a lacrosse racket head, I'm going to go to YouTube. It's going to take me about 30 minutes to figure that out. They're starting to call it the Netflix generation, and I love that. I've heard centennials. I've heard all these different names, but I love that one, the Netflix generation. Man, they are the Netflix generation. Because you know what? If they don't like what you're selling, stop, next. I'm switching from Flash to Green Arrow. Your time is done. I ain't got to waste time on any commercials. I'm not fooling with cable. None of that, man. I had to get up off the couch and turn the TV. Right? USA Up All Night. That's all I had. Man, they've got Netflix. What more do they need? Man, they are the ultimate underdogs, man, because what they don't understand is once they get out into the real world, it ain't Netflix, man. You're stuck with what you got, you know. Unless you're a millennial, man, these guys will hop off board real quick. They'll give you 6 months. They'll give you 2 days. I'm done. I'll find something else. That's why they're buying small. They're living meager because they will bounce on you in a hurry if they don't find purpose in what they're doing. Now, I talk about them being the ultimate underdogs, and here's really why. Coyness aside, here's really why. Too often in education, we're asking kids to be here. Self-actualization. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you didn't know. So Maslow coined this hierarchy, this triangle, this pyramid, and at the top, he gives us this fancy word, self-actualization, which just literally means being their best. We want kids to be their best on a daily basis. Specifically, especially if you're a superintendent, principal, teacher that's getting evaluated on their scores, you want them to be their best on that assessment. Am I right or wrong? Right. So we want them to be here. Yet, way too often than not, we miss this rung right here. Ryan Jackson certainly missed this rung right here. No one believed in him. He never felt like he belonged in any of those schools that he went to. But it's the same in current day. We miss that belonging piece. How do you connect with kids in such a way that they feel like they belong to your institution? Because if you believe in what Maslow's selling, and this is a very popular hierarchy, if you believe what he's selling, you cannot get here unless you hit these. Let me repeat that. You cannot get here. You certainly can't stay here if you don't hit this. Free and reduced lunch, foods in the summer, stuff like that. We're doing better at meeting these safety, security needs, these psychological needs, these physiological needs here. Love and belonging, we do a terrible job at that. When you started kicking out arts, this went away. Self-expression, esteem, efficacy, those went away. If you want kids to perform their best, if we're going to give the underdogs a fighting shot, I need you to live here, especially if you're in a school building on a daily basis. I need you to live here. So that's been my approach. Picture on the right, student from Maplewood High School. Picture on the left, student from Mount Pleasant High School. Same ideology in both of these pictures. What I had, and I didn't really coin it until this year at Mount Pleasant as our vision, courage to create, but I believe in putting students on an experiential learning platform. I believe in creating a holistic learning model for kids where they begin to think, act, and do like creators, not merely consumers of information. So here is a student who's holding his drone, and he used this drone that he modified to create paintings, and we sold $1,200 worth of those paintings at the Red Arrow Gallery in East Nashville as a student artist using a drone. We blew people away with that one. He created them. This girl right here, she partnered with the United States Postage, not the U.S. Post Office, and created a Mule Day stamp that ran for 90 days. Stamp collectors across the United States went nuts getting them by the droves because these things are one of one. She did that. She created that. It's indelible. Never go away. You can never take that from her. Now she feels like I'm connected. I belong, right? Because I created this for Mount Pleasant, man. I did this. And I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to shoot you straight. Mule Day's in Columbia. Mount Pleasant kind of has this contentious relationship with Columbia. I don't care. My students doing this, we want the opportunity because we have the courage to create. And yeah, I had to talk her into it. And when she did it, and this is a student who didn't want to take a picture, I didn't have to talk her into taking that picture. That's the courage to create. Another staggering figure, 7,000. 7,000 students, high school students, drop out every day. It equates to about 26 students per second. And I'm a high school principal. This is coming from dosomething.org. And I'm a high school principal, one who's trying to get his graduation rate up. Mount Pleasant had the lowest graduation rate in Murray County. We had a 7% increase this year. Because I'm fighting for every kid. I'm trying to save every single life. Because 7,000 of them are dropping out. Told you we're going to hit some dark spots today. About 26 students per second, adding up to about 7,000 per day. Nashvillians. Let's have a hard conversation real quick. going to be a hot summer in Nashville, man. I don't know if you've been watching the news. My wife and I lived in Nashville for a very long time. I just moved to the Murray County side of Spring Hill. But now I'm seeing all the news reports every single day. Pistol here, shooting here. Man, they had to shoot somebody. Somebody escaped in 100 Oaks, the Vanderbilt Hospital. People on my Facebook timeline going nuts, scared. Nashville. 75% of crime are committed by high school dropouts. So you've got to start thinking about this correlation. We've coined it the school to prison pipeline. We gave it a fancy name, the school to prison pipeline. But you've got to start thinking about the impact of your work. If we just let them drop out, if we don't go that extra mile, if we rationalize our behavior and our willingness to let them go with, well, they weren't intrinsic enough, well, I can't save them all, then be fine with that number. And be okay with it when it's on your Facebook timeline. Man, because we are on the front lines. It's you and I, folks. If not us, then who? Because we know that 7,000 students are dropping out every day, and we know that 75% of crimes are committed by high school dropouts. What are we doing about it? Man, it's me and you. What are we doing about it? Now, I'm reading a book right now by a guy named Jonah Berger. It's called Contagious. And ultimately, it's like how things go viral, all right? It's kind of, some of it's focused on social media, some of it's on marketing, how things go viral, how you get things to take off. And he says in there, you know, there's a difference between, for social media terms, there's a difference between liking something and sharing something. So in order to get someone to share something, you've got to tap into an active emotion. For instance, awe is an active emotion. Wow, I'm in awe. OMG, I've got to share that. I've got to send somebody this, you know. Or, you know, when you see something that fires you up, that gets you really angry, I'm going to share that with someone. My wife does that a lot. So I get that. But I've got to tap into something with you that gets you to share this message so that it doesn't live in this vacuum right here. So some of this is going to be me being very passionate. And I didn't get 2 specific jobs because they told me I was too aggressive. So full transparency. But now I got one that I love, so you know how that turned out. So here's what it comes down to. Breaking that machine, breaking that paradigm, burning down the house, destroying that standardization education model, an archaic model that was built over 100 years ago when we were preparing kids for an industrial revolution. When we were preparing kids, if you've read the book The Jungle, to go work in a meat factory in Chicago with ankle-deep water or standing on an assembly line. I mean, you know how out of touch we are? So there's this new assembly line. There's this new factory right outside of Mount Pleasant. It's called Landmark. It's a textile factory. And it's an Italian factory. It's a company, state-of-the-art building. I mean, it's incredible. But it's a factory. They use the word factory. So people think factory. Guys on a conveyor belt, right? You're doing this. Man, they've got like less than 100 people in that factory, and it's huge. It's all robotic. The game has changed. Why are we still preparing kids in an archaic 100-plus-year-old model when the game has changed? Why do we tell kids, go do math for an hour, now go down the conveyor belt and do science for an hour? Why are we doing that 100 years later? I'm refusing to do that. So that's why we're breaking the machine. And I'm calling it the rise of the underdog. So you're asking me, well, hey, man, you're an active practitioner. What are you doing about it? We created America's first pre-K through 12 STEAM campus. That's what I'm doing about it. Sold my superintendent on it with a simple vision. I said, listen, man, here's the reality. You asked me to come down from Nashville to come to Mount Pleasant. And I was sold on this precipice. This is a school that needs a lot of help, but it's a good school. It's going to be an arts focus. And then when I got down there, I realized it's a lot more than that. I mean, this is a tough community. This is a destitute community. These are people that need a lot of help. But you know what? I had a meeting a couple months later with a guy named Aubrey Preston. I didn't know this at the time, but Aubrey Preston He's the guy that worked with Jack White to save Studio A in Nashville. He's pretty much the unofficial mayor of Leapers Fork. He's besties with Timberlake and Kid Rock and Bill Belichick and those guys. And he was telling me, he said, man, I had a meeting with him, set up by a friend of a friend. And he says, when I wanted to do something with Leapers Fork, it was a mud hole in the ground. Mount Pleasant is Leapers Fork 15 years ago. Go make that place successful. Because it'll be out of the ashes that you make this successful. So that's what we're doing at Mount Pleasant. So I took that idea to my superintendent and I said, man, you put me out here in exile, right? I almost apologized. I had 2 people come down from O'Moore College of Design. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. We partnered with O'Moore College of Design in Franklin. It's an art school. So we're partnering with them to have a fashion pathway inside Mount Pleasant High School. And they came out, their new president and an instructor, and I felt the need to apologize just because of the drive. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. Thanks for coming out. I apologize. I know we're way out here, right? I mean, it is a trek. I felt like I was exiled when I first got out there. Now, not necessarily in a negative way, because again, I'm always looking for the opportunity in the midst of crisis. So I told myself, fine, if we're way out here and no one really cares about us, and they certainly don't want to help us, then I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And let's just see where the chips fall, right? Nashville had already offered me a job. They wanted me to go somewhere else. I guess I could always go back there. I took a risk, and I came down to Murray County at this school in the middle of nowhere. He said, you want to be the first STEAM high school in the United States? How about we do something bigger than that? We'll be the first STEAM campus in the world. Why not? Here's something to know about Mount Pleasant. Population about 4,800. Per capita income, about 16,000. You know, once known as Methamphetamine Alley. It was the methamphetamine capital of, the United States, certainly the South Central Tennessee region. People living below the poverty line, that's 18.5%. Now, I got a couple of Mount Pleasant folks in here. I got a couple of Murray County folks in here. If I'm lying, guys, stand up right now and tell the crowd I'm lying. There's a couple of them in here. If I'm lying, stand up and tell this crowd I'm lying. This is what we were dealing with in Mount Pleasant. So you're going to go to this place and you're going to try to implement one of the most innovative education paradigms known right now. Yes, I am. That's exactly what I'm going to try to do. They may fight me tooth and nail on it, but that's what I'm going to try to do because I fight for underdogs. And I know that these kids here who've historically been underserved deserve just as much of a fighting chance as other kids. So I wasn't worried about that stuff. So the motto here then was going from outcasts to outstanding. How do we go from outcasts to outstanding? Mount Pleasant was, again, this place in exile where they sent people to die. That was the culture. They're like, man, you ain't doing real well. Go to Mount Pleasant. Banished. It's like a gulag. I took it, I wore it as a coat. Like, come on out to Mount Pleasant. I'll apologize when you get here for the drive. But how do we go from outcasts to outstanding? That was the mission. This is the first week of school, the very first week, because this is Friday. This is how I know it's Friday, because I always dress down on Friday. I didn't wear a tie today, but Miss Lorraine Henry will tell you, I dress pretty nice Monday through Thursday, yes? I try to set that tone for kids. I try to set that bar really high. Like, hey guys, I'm the leader of this building. I represent you, and this is how I do it. Now on Fridays, I bring it way down. And this was the students' first taste of that. So they saw this guy for the first 4 days with their new principal, right, who's dressing like this investment banker with some panache to him. And then on Friday, I come in like this. Like maybe I just got done honky-tonking, right? And these students, man, it's really touched me, man. These students, these girls grabbed me on the way out. I had not even gotten a chance to really know these kids yet. And they wanted to take a picture. Yeah, let's take a picture. Absolutely. It blew their mind, right? But don't take my word for it. I mean, take theirs. She says, not a good picture, but I'm so excited for this school year with one amazing principal. Amazing. She'd known me for like 4 days. But that was the energy we were bringing in there. That was the mindset. It's going to be different this year. I've got your back. Yes, I'll take a picture with you. No, I'm not afraid. And yes, I'll wear my sunglasses when I do it. This guy, he says, good first week of school, y'all. Go follow Ryan B. Jackson and watch the changes made at the Mount. This one touches me the most, though. He put hashtag courage to create, man. Oh, come on. What student puts their vision on a tweet? Their school's vision. Man, I didn't ask him to type that, but I did say yes when he wanted to take my picture. I said, come on, man. That's Curtis Sher, man. Love him, right? Now, it wasn't just the kids, though. I had to jump in and make these teachers feel like they're a part of the fight, too. So we did a Decades Day, right? I can't remember if this was Decades Day. It might have even been Sports Day. But here's a guy. He's one of my teachers. And, you know, I'm trying to blow people away. I'm trying to wow them. I got my 1969 Cubs jersey on. I'm a fan. I'm a big Cubs fan, right? Shout out Joe Madden, Cubs, Theo Epstein, world champions out here. I got my Cubs jersey on. And this guy has to one-up me, man. Got to be a one-upper. This dude breaks out like a 1992 Kellogg's unworn USA Olympic jacket. Oh, he was so proud of it too, man. I had my jersey on. You know, I was flexing. It was Friday. He's like, I ain't gonna lie. I asked him if I could wear it. He wouldn't let me. But that's the impact that we had to take. That's the impact that we had to take. But it's more than that. It's more than dressing down on Fridays. It's more than getting teachers to understand that we've got to look at students through an empathetic lens, even if that means taking risks and being vulnerable. It's also about selling your vision to industry. It's also about getting, businesses to buy in. And here's why. I want to be known as a principal who created a self-sustaining public school. I want to be known as a principal who asked very little from his central office. So I'm gonna keep it 100 with you today, as the students would say. I had this mechatronics program and this Project Lead the Way program that the district had given us, right? I had absolutely no money for it. I was using a room that used to be a weight room. Miss Cindy Pride, who's in attendance, Miss Lou Ray, who's in attendance, again, they'll speak on this. This is truth. It had no HVAC. So the students are working there. Imagine August. Ooh, brutal. That's the only space we had. That's where we're working. That's where we're getting the work done. I'm not complaining. We're getting the work done. It's one thing I love about Mount Pleasant. I'll tell you what, rural folks, and I've now got urban and rural perspective. Man, rural kids, they'll work in the heat. They are not worried about getting sweaty. Whereas I know some kids, I ain't doing that. Not these guys. They'll work in that heat. However, I didn't want us to stay there. I accepted it for where we were, but we dang sure weren't going to stay there, because I want to be that principal that's known for creating a self-sustaining school that asks for very little. So the whole year, I'm vision casting, we're working, while I'm simultaneously, begrudgingly begging central office for something. I got to have something. So I started to attract partnerships. Here's a couple of them. We signed a deal with NASA. I'm going to make it public in September. But Mount Pleasant is going to be a part of NASA's Hunch program. High schools united with NASA to create hardware for the International Space Station. That's pretty high profile, especially for a school out in exile. We partnered with NASA. Huntsville's not too far away. Bob Zeke came up. He saw the stuff we were doing in mechatronic. He said, done deal. He saw that I'd partnered with Parker Hannafin. Done deal. He said, do you know they make our filters for us, man? Let's do something stupid. I said, let's do it. We partnered with O'Moore College of Design because I wanted my kids to think like creators, not consumers. I wanted them to know that just because they lived in rural Tennessee, they can create high-end fashion. They can be couture. They can go to Paris Fashion Week if they want. They can hobnob with Amanda Valentine, season runner-up of Project Runway if they want to. And guess what? We'll do it right here from Mount Pleasant. We may be in exile, but social media has leveraged that platform. I'll cast our vision to everybody in the United States. I'll cast our vision to people in Japan and get them to see what we're doing. I don't care where we are. We're in Mount Pleasant. That's where it's going down. So those are just two of our partnerships, NASA and O'Moore. There's a couple more. What else do you got to do? You got to tell that story relentlessly. You have to be passionate about that vision. You have to be willing to stand on that platform, look dead into the camera, point your thumb at the sign and say, we are America's first pre-K through 12 STEAM campus, and we're going one-to-one, which means I'm putting a laptop in the hands of every kid out here in Mount Pleasant. And I'm so proud about it, I'm going to throw it on my Instagram. Now, why am I doing that? I'm getting kids excited about coming to Mount Pleasant. A couple of the other news pieces that we got this year. Just a couple. Couldn't fit them all on the page. Sanofi Pharmaceuticals, Fifth largest pharmaceutical company in the world gives us $5,000 to build an amphibious drone to collect stagnant water to detect for Zika viruses. This is my football coach right here. You know how I connected with him? I'm an alcoholic, so I use weightlifting to get by. This guy's just a beast. He's the head football coach. He loves to work out. We've almost become best friends now because we push ourselves. He's so good at it, this guy wins like national championships. He pushes me. I don't have any ego, man. He's my football coach. He's a teacher. I have no ego. This man trains me. This is Scott Anders, my construction teacher. And the headline on this front cover story was, "If you build it," talking about the program he's doing. He just built a 1,200 square foot home with his kids. Now I'm trying to get HGTV to come down and do a show on us because we're building a tiny house. That's what I like to do. We're going one-to-one. We were the pilot school. Digital learning officer visits Mount Pleasant. Tennessee College of Applied Technology is opening on my campus. They're going to be in the community center that sits right in the hub. This is us, the importance of being educated. There's my girl. She created that stamp. I love this one. New home construction resumes in Mount Pleasant. You know, they say you can't have industry without education. Let me tell you how important your jobs are. Let me tell you how important. Mount Pleasant had a 20-year sewer moratorium, which meant you cannot build in Mount Pleasant. It had been stagnant. There was no new development. There was a sewer moratorium. That got lifted this year. City manager quotes the school system as being the catalyst. Because you know what? When people want new jobs, when they're coming to industry, the first thing they ask is, well, certainly when it's Mount Pleasant, where's Mount Pleasant? Second thing they ask is, what are the schools like? There you go. That's how important your jobs are. You're literally affecting community. You're literally affecting commerce. Come on, guys. Let's have a real conversation. Now, I've had some people say, he's on Instagram, he's on Twitter a lot. Is it window dressing? I don't know. You tell me. These are our ACT scores. You tell me. Last year versus this year. 1 year under the STEAM model. 1 year with me telling kids they can be successful. 1 year of me saying, if you can't read, you're going to struggle. And check out our reading growth. But you know what I'm more proud of? Because we did increase in 3 out of the 4 subtests. But come on, man. We moved a half a point in overall composite. A half a point on the ACT, folks, is nothing to sneeze at. So it's way more than window dressing. These are ACT results. Now, the ACT is a test that I stand by. If you're going to be college bound, get in here and take this ACT, because ultimately it comes down to dollars, right? If you're not scoring well on certain subtests, then when you get to college, you're taking high school classes at college prices. Let's have a real conversation. And that's about $900 per class that you could have handled for free when you were in high school. That's a conversation I have with my kids. Let's talk dollars and cents. I'm very proud of this one. Look, man, kids don't learn if they don't feel safe. This is our discipline. Last year versus my first year. It's very significant. When kids are put on experiential learning platforms, when kids feel like they're not only going to be held accountable, but it's through this empathetic lens, they will seek you out proactively before they do something destructive. So I don't want you to think that, well, the school just magically got better. No, man, we had a lot of hard conversations, healthy ones, but hard conversations to get this down here. But the proof is still in the pudding. So I come back to this, full circle. Clark Legacy Foundation, which is the grant arm of Parker Hannafin, gave us $500,000. Now, they had an opportunity to give us between $150,000 and $500,000, right? We really thought, me and Ryan Pastrana, the Vice President of Innovation, we really thought it would be more around $150,000 or $200,000. He goes to the Board of Trustees and pitches STEAM. And when, of course, they ask him, well, what is STEAM? Explain that. When he pitches integrating art into STEM, creating this holistic, man, I had trained him up, man. So he's talking that Jackson talk, right? You know, creating this holistic learning model that empowers kids, builds efficacy, esteem, belonging. They wrote the whole check. $500,000. So that's what this is. Now, it gets a little bit more significant for me. This was September, guys. This was September. I didn't get that check till June. This is September, and these are students at Mount Pleasant High School designing the innovation lab that we may or may not be able to build, but we still vision casted it because I told my students, speak it into existence. So we designed it using SketchUp. This is Clarkor. That's Ryan Pastrana. That's Armin Begtrup, my mechatronics instructor. And those are the plans that students created that we were vision casting at the time in September. So they ran a piece on us for this $500,000 grant. And the student was there. We brought 3 of them to the board that night. And we did our thing. We did the check, and it was great. And then we bring this one student in, and here's what he says. They ask him to speak. He says, "We were the downtrodden, the forgotten. Education is now cool for all of us. We want to go into careers of engineering and math. We were the downtrodden, the forgotten." Not anymore, folks. Thank you, guys. It's been great. I really appreciate your time.